Monday morning, the kind that smells like oversteeped tea and memories that won't go away. I was standing in the kitchen, the same one Harold and I built together 40 years ago. The same one where he'd sit in his robe reading the paper while I cooked eggs he always said were too good for a man like me. But Harold had been gone for 3 years now, taken too fast by the kind of cancer that doesn't ask for permission. Still, I made breakfast for two. Every day. Still, I poured 2 cups of tea. One always went cold. That morning, I wasn't thinking about anything special. I wasn't expecting heartbreak to knock. But then my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a weather alert or maybe a grocery app reminder. Instead, I saw her name, Zuri, my daughter-in-law. "Love the gifts, mother-in-law." I froze. What gifts? I hadn't sent her anything. Not a card, not a flower, certainly not a gift. A knot formed in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I opened my banking app. What I saw next felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. $53,000. Gone. Vanished. Spent in less than 24 hours. Tiffany & Co., $18,000. Cartier, $22,000. Luxury spa, $3,500. First-class flights to Paris, $9,500. I couldn't breathe. The screen began to blur, not from a faulty signal, but from the tears that stung my eyes. I hadn't cried since Harold's funeral, but this felt worse in a different way. Not because of the money, although that number was more than I'd ever spent on myself in a year, but because of what it meant. Zuri had taken my card. She had used it, lavishly, openly, without remorse. And then she had the audacity to thank me. "Love the gifts, mother-in-law." Like I was nothing but a checkbook with a weak password. Like I was some clueless old woman too lonely to notice. And the worst part, she wasn't even trying to hide it. My hands were shaking. Not just trembling. Shaking. Like they didn't belong to me anymore. I sat down slowly, afraid my knees wouldn't hold. The kitchen chair creaked beneath me, the same chair Harold used to pull out for me every morning, the same chair where I kissed him goodbye on the day he left for his last treatment. Now it held a different kind of weight, the weight of betrayal. I stared at the phone, still open to the message. "Love the gifts, mother-in-law." My thumb hovered over the screen, useless. What was I supposed to say? "You're welcome for stealing from me?" Then came the second message. "Tyson and I are having the best time in Paris. This suite is unbelievable. You should see the view." Attached were 3 photos. The first, Zuri on a hotel balcony wearing a silk robe, her hair perfect, her lips glossed. She was holding a champagne flute raised in a mock toast. The second, a close-up of a Cartier diamond bracelet glittering on her wrist. The third, her lounging on a velvet chaise wearing a gold necklace that looked like something straight out of a royal vault. Each image felt like a slap across my face. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the deceit. It was the confidence, the ease, the arrogance with which she posed and smiled like I was some kind of fool, like I was already forgotten. I gave her my trust, she gave me humiliation. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Not anger, not even heartbreak. It was the bitter silence of realization I had raised a son who married a stranger I didn't recognize, and worse, who now doubted his own mother. I sat there, phone still in hand, the photos seared into my brain like scars I didn't ask for. The longer I stared, the more something began to itch at the back of my mind, a feeling I couldn't shake. It wasn't just shock anymore, it was doubt. Not doubt in Zuri. I already knew what she was capable of. Doubt in the timeline. Why did this feel rehearsed? The purchases were too fast, too clean. No hesitation, no hiding, not even a fake apology. She didn't just get lucky with my credit card. She knew exactly what she was doing. And suddenly, one cold thought crawled through me like ice down my spine. This wasn't the first time. Maybe this was just the first time she felt bold enough to be open about it, to gloat, to post, to mock. I began to look back. The new designer coat she wore to Christmas dinner last year, the purse she claimed was a knockoff but looked far too real, the spa gift cards she gifted her friends even though she hadn't worked in months. I had brushed it all off before. Just signs of youth, I told myself. Vanity, a little indulgence. But now it looked like breadcrumbs, and I was the trail. Looking back, the signs were always there, but grief is a strange lens. It blurs the edges. It softens warnings into whispers. The day Zuri married my son, I remember thinking, she's beautiful, composed, elegant, and distant. Not cold exactly, just calculated. She never raised her voice, never showed open disrespect. But every time she said the word mom, it landed wrong. Not warm, not affectionate. It came out like a line, rehearsed, polished, hollow, like someone learning a foreign word phonetically without meaning it. She smiled with her teeth, not her eyes. And somehow I always felt like I was being studied, not welcomed. At family dinners, she would offer to help, but her hands never really got dirty. At birthdays, she gave expensive gifts, but never remembered what Tyson actually liked. She laughed at my jokes, but a second too late, and only when someone else laughed first. And when she hugged me, it always felt like she was measuring my bones. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable if you weren't paying attention. A missed chair at the wedding table, a forgotten name in the group photo, an inside joke I was never part of. At Tyson and Zuri's wedding, I remember walking into the reception hall and scanning for my place card. I wasn't at the family table. I was seated with Harold's elderly cousins near the kitchen doors. It was just an oversight, Tyson told me later. You know how chaotic seating charts can be. But somehow Zuri's hairdresser made it to the main table. So did her college roommate. So did her yoga instructor. I understood. I always understood. Then came the family photos. Oh no, we were just snapping a quick one, Agatha. Always after the fact. Always just missed you. Somehow I was never in the frame, even when I was standing 5 feet away. And then there was the food. I'd cook for holidays, pouring my heart into the dishes. Harold loved braised short ribs, cinnamon yams, my grandmother's honey cornbread. Zuri would smile sweetly, take a photo for Instagram, and say, "So authentic, just like something you'd find in a living history museum." A compliment, if you ignored the undertone. Then one night over dinner, she said it casually, almost like it was for my own good. Have you ever thought about maybe moving to one of those assisted communities? You know, independent living, but with support nearby, just in case something happens. She said it while sipping wine. While sitting in the house I built with Harold. And she said it with that same tone she used when she called me Mom, polite, precise, and sharper than a scalpel. Money is one thing. It comes and goes. You work, you save, you rebuild. But when someone starts to tamper with how your own child sees you, that's not theft, that's war. And Zuri, she didn't just steal from my wallet, she stole from my son's memory of me. I saw it happening slowly. First, it was the way Tyson stopped laughing at my stories. Then it was how he started asking if I was doing okay a little too often, his eyes scanning my face like he was checking for cracks. Mom, didn't you already tell us that story last week? Are you sure you turned the stove off? Zuri said you've been feeling confused lately. Is that true? At first, I blamed it on stress, his job, life. But then came the whispers Zuri planted so gently into every conversation. Your mom is just overwhelmed without Harold. I think she's forgetting things more often now. We should talk to her doctor just to be safe. She said it with concern, with that same saccharine tone she used when offering me herbal tea I didn't ask for. But every word was a needle, each suggestion a thread in a quiet trap. She wasn't just trying to isolate me. She was building a narrative, a version of me that was fragile, slipping, unreliable, and Tyson, he believed her. He started looking at me with gentle pity, the kind you save for someone who's already halfway gone. That hurt more than all the money she ever stole. It happened at 3:17 a.m. I hadn't slept. Not really. Just stared at the ceiling while Zuri's voice echoed in my skull. "Love the gifts, mother-in-law. Tyson and I are having the best time in Paris." And worst of all, Tyson's voice full of doubt. "Mom, are you sure you didn't give her permission?" That night, the silence in the house was unbearable. It wasn't quiet. It was accusing. So I got up. No lights, no tea, no tears. Just one goal: find the truth. I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled my laptop close, and logged into every account I owned: savings, checking, credit cards. Then I remembered something I hadn't thought about in over a year: Whitmore and Associates, the business Harold and I built from scratch, the consulting firm that gave us everything. After he passed, I'd taken a step back. The company still existed, technically, but I'd handed most of the loose ends to Tyson: client emails, expense accounts, closure procedures. I'd almost forgotten we still had a business card tied to that account, until I saw the transactions, and then my stomach turned. There were purchases going back 8 months, not just for Paris, not just for jewelry, but spas, boutiques, high-end restaurants. Every charge carefully coded as client entertainment. Every receipt marked approved. Total amount $75,482. And the card issued to Tyson Whitmore, authorized user Zuri Whitmore. I sat back staring at the screen like it had slapped me across the face. She hadn't just stolen from me, she had committed corporate fraud. And suddenly, the woman she thought was weak, grieving, and easy to silence remembered who she really was. I hadn't opened that closet in months, the one in the far corner of my bedroom, behind the shelf of old photo albums and Harold's untouched ties. That closet held a different version of me, a version I had locked away the day he died, the day I told myself I was no longer a CEO, just a widow, just a mother, just tired. But now, as I stood there in the dim morning light, staring at those quiet wooden doors, I felt something shift. Not rage, not revenge, resolve. I reached for the back hanger, brushing past mothballs and dust. And there it was, the navy blue Armani blazer, wool, custom-tailored, sharp at the shoulders. The same blazer I wore the day I closed a $3.4 million contract with Stratton Global. The same blazer I wore to speak at the Women in Leadership Summit in 2007. The same blazer Harold used to call your power armor. It still fit. I slipped it on slowly, felt the fabric hug my frame like a memory that had been waiting to return. Then I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't frail. She wasn't confused. And she certainly wasn't someone's passive, pitiful mother-in-law. She was Agatha Whitmore, co-founder, executive, negotiator, fighter. And Zuri, she was about to meet a version of me she never knew existed. There are many ways to destroy a person. Some use rage, some use gossip, some use courts. But the most elegant destruction is the truth, served cold at dinner. So I began my preparations. Step 1, evidence. I started with screenshots every transaction from both my personal and business accounts. I organized them by date, by vendor, by amount, then cross-checked them against Zuri's Instagram. Every spa post, every photo of a champagne glass on a plane, every #ParisLife tagged story, she documented her own crimes. Next came the emails. The receipts in her name, the loyalty points being funneled to her personal accounts. Step 2, backup. I went to the bank and requested printed statements. I had them notarized. I downloaded security logs from my home Wi-Fi. Zuri had logged into my accounts from their house. Her device IDs confirmed it. Step 3. Set the trap. I texted Tyson, "Dinner this Saturday, just us three. I made pot roast, your favorite." He replied, "Sounds nice, Mom. Been too long." Yes, son, it's been far too long. I placed the printed evidence in a folder, labeled it Whitmore Family Trust Security Audit, a white lie to lure them in, but the truth would greet them at the table. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a reckoning, and they had no idea what was coming. The pot roast was perfect. Tender, aromatic, a recipe Harold used to request every Sunday. The table was set for 3. White linen, red wine breathing beside the roast, a flickering candle between us. Tyson smiled when he walked in. "Smells like home," he said, kissing my cheek. Zuri followed. Lip gloss like glass, smile like steel. "Lovely spread, Agatha. Looks like someone's pulling out all the stops." I smiled. What she didn't notice was the folder resting neatly at the end of the table. Thick, labeled, waiting. We made small talk. Tyson talked about his work. Zuri recounted a story about a clumsy waitress in Paris. I listened. I nodded. I poured wine. Then, after the first bite of roast beef, I gently slid the folder toward them. "Before dessert," I said softly, "I thought you two might want to see this." Tyson blinked. Zuri's smile didn't move, but her eyes did, flickering. He opened the folder. Inside, bank statements, screenshots of login history, luxury receipts in Zuri's name, a printed photo of the handwritten plan, establish memory decline, secure financial access, full control in 18 months. Tyson looked up, pale. "Is this?" I nodded. Zuri cleared her throat. "Wow, this is dramatic. You really think I didn't raise my voice. "No, I don't think, Zuri. I know." The air shifted. Suddenly, this wasn't just dinner. It was a courtroom. And I wasn't just his mother. I was the woman they underestimated. Zuri leaned back in her chair, still composed, still wearing that smug smile, like she had a backup plan, like she always did. She tilted her head at Tyson, then back at me. "Oh, Agatha, you've always had such vivid imagination." She reached for her wine like nothing happened, but I wasn't done. "You used the company card, Zuri." Her hand paused midair. I pulled out a second folder, marked with the corporate logo. "These are charges to Whitmore Strategy Group's business account. Jewelry, flights, hotel suites in the 8th arrondissement. Not just theft, federal wire fraud." Zuri's glass touched the table gently, too gently. Then she laughed. It was high-pitched, nervous. "Come on, Tyson. Your mother is trying to scare me into confessing. It's pathetic." But Tyson didn't laugh. He was reading, line by line. His lips moved as he whispered the amounts to himself. He looked up. "Zuri, these are your frequent flyer numbers." Silence. Her eyes darted. Her smile twitched. Then Agatha slid one last page across the table. "A list of your logins from our IP address. The dates match each charge. You didn't even try to hide it." Zuri blinked. Then she crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fall. Not yet. I just wanted to feel important," she whispered. "You always made me feel like a guest in this family, like a stray dog." I didn't reply. Tyson did. "You were never a guest. You were my wife. But now, I don't even know who I married." Tyson stared at the documents spread across the table. His hands were clenched. His jaw tightened with every number he read. It was all there. The money, the trips, the lies. But worse than the theft was the manipulation. He looked at his wife, his partner, the woman he thought he knew. "You told me my mother was unstable. You forged her messages." "You called her senile behind her back?" Zuri looked away. Agatha didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence hit harder than any word ever could. Tyson's voice cracked. "I yelled at her. When she forgot my birthday last year, I thought it was a sign of her memory slipping. You made me believe she needed help." He turned to his mother. "But you didn't forget, did you?" Agatha shook her head slowly. "I was in the hospital that week. No one came." Tyson dropped his face into his hands. 3 years. I protected the wrong person for 3 years. He looked up, his eyes wet but clear. "I'm sorry, Mom. I let her make you feel invisible, like you were crazy, and I didn't even question it." Agatha reached out, gently squeezing his hand. "You see now, that's what matters." Zuri was cornered. All her tricks, her charm, her fake innocence, her passive-aggressive smile, they were useless now. Agatha calmly placed 2 documents on the table. One was a legal statement, a full confession of financial fraud, signed, dated, and notarized. The other, a binding agreement of non-contact. Zuri would return every penny, and she'd agree under penalty of perjury to never contact Agatha again. "You sign both, and this stays out of court," Agatha said. Zuri's face twisted. Rage, desperation, humiliation. "You can't do this to me. I'm family." Agatha's eyes didn't blink. "You made yourself a thief, not family." Zuri slammed her hands on the table. "This is blackmail." Agatha leaned in, voice low. "No, this is mercy. I have enough evidence to put you away for 5 to 10 years. This is your only chance to walk away with nothing but your name." Zuri's lips trembled. She looked to Tyson, but he wasn't her shield anymore. He stared at her like she was a stranger. "Sign it, or call a lawyer," he said coldly. A long pause. Then Zuri picked up the pen and signed. Her signature, once elegant and proud, now jagged and shaking. When it was done, Agatha collected the papers. Carefully, quietly. Zuri opened her mouth to say something. Agatha raised a hand. "No more words. Just go." Zuri stood at the doorway with nothing but a duffel bag. No jewelry, no designer handbags, no black card, not even her wedding ring. Just silence. Tyson stood behind her, arms crossed, his face unreadable. She turned to him one last time. "I did all of this for us, for our future." Tyson didn't flinch. "No, Zuri, you did it for you." A beat passed, a long, echoing pause between the life they had and the one that would never be. He shut the door. Zuri was out, not just of the house, but out of his life. Word spread quickly. She resigned from the board she once bragged about. Her social circle vanished. Nobody wanted to be associated with a woman who scammed her own mother-in-law. What was once a carefully curated image was now rubble. Zuri, glamorous, clever, ruthless Zuri, had become a cautionary tale. And Agatha, she didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply walked into her kitchen and brewed a fresh cup of coffee. The house was quiet, not with sadness, but with a kind of peace that only comes after the storm. Tyson stood at the front gate, suitcase in hand. He knocked. He didn't have a key anymore. When Agatha opened the door, they just stared at each other. So much unsaid. So much that didn't need to be said anymore. He stepped forward and hugged her, tight, like a boy who had been lost for too long. "I'm sorry, Mom, for not believing you, for letting her turn me against you." Agatha didn't cry. She didn't scold him. She just placed a hand gently on his cheek. "I was never weak, Tyson. I was just too trusting." Tyson nodded, ashamed. "Can I come home?" Agatha smiled softly. "You never truly left." That night, they cooked dinner together. Simple, quiet, healing. No Paris flights, no Cartier gifts, no secrets. Just a mother and her son, finally back under the same roof. Agatha sat alone in the study, surrounded by photo albums and old frames. Each picture held a weight. Zuri at Christmas, Zuri at the wedding. Zuri pretending to be family. She didn't tear the photos. She didn't burn them. She simply removed each one and let them go. There was no rage, only a kind of quiet clarity. But one photo, just one, remained on the shelf. Agatha Tyson and Harold, standing together in front of Harold's grave. 3 hands joined, 3 generations bound by love and loss. She looked at it for a long time. The pain was real, but so was the love. She smiled, then closed the last album. Tomorrow, she'd pack the boxes. Next week, she'd leave the house. But tonight, she allowed herself to remember just enough to carry the warmth, not the weight. The ocean didn't ask questions. It just breathed in and out, calm, endless. Agatha stood on her new balcony watching the waves roll in. She had sold the old house last month, signed the papers, closed the door. Now she lived in a bright apartment by the coast, windows wide, no memories attached to the walls, just sea breeze and the scent of salt and freedom. She signed up for a photography class. At 63, she bought her first DSLR camera. She joined a local book circle, met 2 retired teachers, 1 former actress, and a feisty 78-year-old woman named Joy, who wore red lipstick to breakfast. She started walking every morning barefoot on the sand. No destination, just movement. "I'm not chasing time anymore," she whispered once. "I'm letting it walk beside me." She wasn't trying to be young again. She was finally learning how to be Agatha. She wasn't the same woman anymore. Not the woman who once stayed silent at family dinners. Not the woman who tiptoed around her own home. Not the woman who apologized for existing. No. Agatha now spoke with clarity, laughed with her chest open, walked like she had nothing to hide, because she didn't. She made her own schedule, made new friends, made mistakes, and most of all, made peace with the past. There were still quiet moments, of course, nights when she missed Harold, mornings when the silence hummed a little too loud. But she no longer mistook grief for guilt, and she no longer confused being kind with being small. One evening, Joy, the red lipstick friend, told her, "You've got a light in you again, Agatha." She smiled. "No," she said gently, "it never left. I just forgot where I put it." And in that moment, with salt air in her hair and soft laughter around her, Agatha wasn't just living again. She was alive. It was just past 6. The ocean turned the color of melted gold. Agatha poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Tyson. He looked older now, more grounded. There was a scar behind his voice when he spoke. But tonight, he smiled. "I got the promotion," he said, almost shy. Agatha raised her glass. "To learning the hard way," she said, "but learning nonetheless." They clinked glasses. No tears, no grand apology anymore. Just the quiet understanding that comes after storms. "You okay, Mom?" She looked at the horizon, the sun sinking slow and soft. "For the first time in years, I think I am." He nodded. "Thanks for not giving up on me." "Thanks for coming back," she replied. There was a silence between them, not empty, but full. Full of time lost, yes, but also full of possibility. This wasn't the same mother who once whispered through walls, and this wasn't the same son who once turned away. This was something new, not a second chance, but a real first one. If she hadn't been so greedy, maybe I'd still be sleeping with the lights off. Maybe I'd still be walking on eggshells in my own home. Maybe I'd still be playing small so others could feel big. But she was greedy, and because of that, I woke up. I remembered who I was. Not just Harold's widow, not just Tyson's mother, but Agatha. The woman who once signed million-dollar contracts, who once built something out of nothing, who now, after everything, built herself back. So thank you, Zuri. Really, you tried to break me, but in doing so, you reminded me that I am not breakable. I am not weak. I am not old news. I am not finished. I am still here. I am still becoming. Now I'm free. No more walking on eggshells. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more smiling just to survive the room. I'm no longer the background character in my own life. I wake up without fear. I eat when I'm hungry. I laugh without checking who's watching. And for the first time in so long, I see myself. Not the woman who lost everything, but the woman who found herself. The truth is, I spent years giving parts of me away to grief, to guilt, to people who only saw me as useful or disposable. And somewhere along the way, I lost the most valuable thing I had, me. But not anymore. Now I see it clearly. I am the gift. I always was. And I will never forget that again. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who sit closest at the table. But healing begins the moment we stop asking why they did it and start asking what we deserve next. Agatha's story reminds us you are not too old to begin again. You are not too broken to rebuild. And you are not here to be used, but to be cherished. Choose yourself, even when no one else does. Especially then. If this story touched something in you, if it made you remember your strength or your silence, or the part of you you're still fighting for, subscribe to Whispers of Life. Every week, we tell stories that heal, reveal, and remind you you are never alone. Hit the bell. Share this with someone who needs it. Let's build strength one whisper at a time.